Basically, DPDK is a set of libraries. Sometimes we call it a framework, but okay, it's just a library. And I wonder what cares the most for a library. I think the most important is to be really useful for the application. So when preparing this presentation, I thought what we should care for the application. In other words, what means writing a DPDK application. So there will be some basic design, and I'll give you some example. After, we'll see how the ecosystem can help you during all the application lifecycle. And then, something really important, how making a bigger community can help you and actually can boost everyone using DPDK. So first, let's look at the basic numbers, because I think everyone is interested in DPDK because of the numbers. So let's take the example of a 10 gigs flow with some small packet, 64 bytes packet. We see that it is a flow of 15 million packets per second. With pretty recent configuration, with some nice drivers, we can achieve 50 cycles to forward the packet. This means that we can forward 10 gigs of small packets with only 750 megahertz. In other words, it's now a reality to forward 40 gigs with only one core of modern CPU. So what does it mean? First, it is a stratospheric performance. But also, it means probably you'll have many cores or many free space in your CPU to run your application. And another thing really important, because of having only 50 cycles required to forward your packet, it means that all the code you put on top of it for your application will be very important. And here you have to take care to don't waste your cycles, or the performance can decrease really quickly. Then design. So first, now it's quite common to split the design in two, with first a kernel stack, a control plane, and then a data plane. Here we call the data plane fastpass, DPDK fastpass. Okay, it's a method of allocation of your cores, because you have many cores to do many things. So first, simple architecture. The control plane is really simple. It's only for configuration. And your DPDK fastpass is forwarding your packet or doing some processing. Then maybe you have a marginal part of your traffic which require more processing that you doesn't want to process by yourself. So you can require help from the kernel stack. In this case, we call it the slow pass, or an exception mechanism. And third case, in some cases, the slow pass and the fast pass are really related, and you need to merge some information from the slow pass to the fast pass. For example, you want to process the ARP packet in your slow pass, but your fast pass needs the information of the MAC address and so on. So there is a synchronization. So the really simple application fits in the first model, the simple model. For example, a standalone firewall or a DPDK application only process some raw packets, so it's really simple. But more complex applications like IPsec, TCP, or BRS need a more complex stack. Then, so you need some complex stack, and you'll see that having a DPDK fastpass stack is really more efficient than a kernel ones. So you can ask why a DPDK fastpass stack is more efficient. There are many reasons. First, parallel processing. A standard application needs a TCP socket to be connected to the kernel stack. So it's a single point of connections. And then your application can use dynamic threads and a loop to dispatch the packet in these threads. Okay? But it's not parallel from the beginning to the end. With the DPDK, you allocate some static threads, and you ask to your hardware with RSS dispatching or flow director or other filtering, hardware filtering, 5-tuple or other things. And your packet goes directly in a queue, which is filled to be processed by your DPDK core. And this DPDK thread is directly pinned to a CPU core. So the processing is really parallelized from the beginning. And the hardware makes this hard job. We can speak about true multi-core processing. Then run to completion is part of DPDK from the beginning. Actually, it's the founding model. Why run to completion? Because we care about each cycle. So we don't want to waste some cycle with scheduling. What does it mean? It means that your application is in the polling thread, and your application must not block a long time, because if the application blocks, the next packet won't be processed, and the queue will be full. Yeah. And what it means also, it means that your processing is working hard and is taking all your CPU, but you can mitigate this polling mechanism by using some IRQ. And for example, you can stop your polling until the next packet is arrived in the queue. It is a power management mechanism. So in this way, we are already near from the NAPI model from the kernel. Then DPDK really cares about the cache misses. First, there are some dedicated functions with fine-grained control over the memory, and especially a good control with the NUMA socket memory, because as you know, QPI must be avoided because it's not as fast as direct memory access. Then DPDK leverage huge pages. This way you avoid some TLB cache misses, because there is less pages to handle. And then something more easy to understand. You have only to manage a small part of memory to avoid cache misses. That's why special attention is ported to RTE mbuf to be really small. It is really, really smaller than the skbuf from the kernel. So less memory means less miss. And here you have to be really careful. So sometimes when you have some packet loss, you say, oh, okay, it's because I have not enough buffers. So you increase your buffer pools. But actually, it leads you to L3 misses, and it's awful, actually. It's really not a good policy. What you have to do when you lose some packet is only to be really careful with your memory usage. And last thing, this one about the lock, because DPDK tried to use some local memory objects in each core. This way, you don't share memory between cores. So you have less miss and you have less lock, because locking is really something which is avoided in DPDK. And in case you have to use some lock, you can use spin locks and atomic instructions from the DPDK. Okay. By following these basic advices and tips, you should be able to write an application which scales with the number of processing cores. And you really defeat the kernel stack. Okay. Yeah, a question?
Okay, back on the previous slide. Not this one, the next one. The 220 Mbps IP forwarding, that's on 6-win gate, right?
This one, the
yeah.
IP forwarding? Yes, but it's a number which was measured with some configuration. I can give you here the detail of the test. But
no,
yes, it was seen with 6-win gate.
But with 6-win gate, okay.
Because it's the application my company is working for.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So in the previous slide, you're recommending using spin locks or atomic instructions instead of the lockless keys.
Yeah. Yeah, atomic instruction will prevent you from using locks. So let's see some application. First, IPsec. So here you see that the kernel stack is the center object, and it's connected to the IKE application. First for notification, for packets, and it's also connected by OpenSSL, or the new one, Boring SSL from Google, in order to process the IKE packet with the crypto cores. Okay, it's really simple. In case of DPDK, it's quite the same thing, but look, we replace the kernel by the DPDK, and now we need to put an IPsec stack on top of the DPDK, because before we were using the kernel IPsec stack. And then you have to change the communication from the IKE to your IPsec stack. Okay. After having written such IPsec stack, you can achieve really good performance, which scaled with the number of processing cores. Another application, TCP. Okay. The main thing about TCP is that the API is based on a socket. But probably your application will use one socket and dispatch the packet in a loop to many dynamic threads. In DPDK, you want a true parallel processing, so you have to allocate some static threads, and use something like RSS to dispatch your packets. And then you replace your single TCP socket by a socket object which is shared between your cores. This is the tricky part, actually. So you are removing a bottleneck, which can lead you to have some packet ordering difficulties. But you have a new API to leverage this new socket object, which is shared between cores. Yeah, because how to explain that? Actually, the legacy TCP API is ready to manage one socket, and if you really want to have a real parallelization, your upper application must be aware of this new socket. Yeah, it's not easy to explain like that. Something else which could be really efficient for TCP is to have zero copy, but having a zero copy with a TCP application means you are using the RTE mbuf directly in your application. And something else which is really important with TCP is the timers, because timers are really everywhere in the TCP stack. When this is done, you can achieve many concurrent TCP connections, and it's scaled with the number of cores. Again, it's a good property of DPDK. And tomorrow at IDF, you could see even higher numbers because we have seen 100 million concurrent socket with 5 million sockets per second. I mean 5 million creation deletion sockets per second. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Transactions?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, we are, yeah, it's nice. We have 100 million sockets stable while creating and destroying 5 million sockets per second.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah. You'll see it tomorrow at 6 booth. So virtualization, DPD, okay. Today we have seen DPDK in virtualization, so it's not new. But you can use DPDK in a guest. By using DPDK in the guest, you are removing a bottleneck. And when you have removed this bottleneck, you can see the other ones. First, there is a bottleneck between your virtual machine and the hypervisor. Then you can have a bottleneck in your virtual switch. And the last one is at the driver level, but here it's really easy. You just have to use DPDK as hypervisor driver. This bottleneck can be removed by using SRIOV. Or you can use an accelerated virtual switch, which is we called VNF portability. Because you have to know that SRIOV is really dependent of the hardware, but virtual switch can work with any network hardware. There is another problem with SRIOV. It is VM to VM communication. As you can see, we can use the NIC to pass the packet between a VM to another, but it's using the PCI bus. And the PCI bus is limited to roughly 50 gigs. So it's really better to use virtual stitching with what you can achieve 500 gigs. Okay, now the big picture of VNF portability. So as I can say, you can have an accelerated virtual switch or an accelerated Linux bridge. In this DPDK model, you can add some other stack features like NAT, GRE, VXLAN, IPsec. Okay, here you are using DPDK drivers, and to remove the bottleneck of communication between the hypervisor and virtual machine, the best solution is to use a dedicated Polmod driver. This dedicated Polmod driver can communicate with the guest counterpart here. It's the same thing by using a Virta-U Polmod driver, but Virta-U is less efficient because more generic. And you can degrade this solution for virtual machines which which are not aware of DPDK, or for other OS. Okay, like for other example, you can see that the performance scales with the number of cores. For here, it's an example of OVS forwarding. Yeah, about virtualization, there is a hot topic this month. It's about OpenStack. There are many things to say. First, about Nova in OpenStack. There are many things to do. For example, there is no support for the host user, which is a trendy communication. There is not really pinning configuration. I mean, it's really difficult to say I want to pin this virtual core to this physical core, or I want this virtual core shared with other virtual core. Because we want that the guest DPDK core really well pin to only one physical core. And yeah, there is no automation of the policy scheduling. About libvirt, there is no ivshmem configuration. It's critical because ivshmem is often used with DPDK. In Open Virtual Switch, okay, now there is some work in progress, but it's not yet finished. And we will have other problem with the drivers, because, for example, we cannot migrate a virtual machine based on the host user. And about the whole DPDK, we have to add some dynamic to add or delete port, and we have to do this without locking. It's a real challenge. Okay, now all this application can use some extension. Oh. Yeah, first I have to say the DPDK extension are really transparent for the application, because they are some shared libraries and they can be used really transparently. So the good thing is that when you have wrote your DPDK application, you can leverage some other driver from other NIC vendors. For example, the Mellanox, Emulex, the new Cavium Liquid IO, and Cisco announced a coming driver. Maybe somewhere here can speak about it. There is also a rumor about Netronome. There is a link here. And also Taylor. Okay. We can think that in nearly future, every vendors will have their PMD, I hope. Yes, extension also for virtualization, and there are some extension for cryptography. This ecosystem is growing really quickly. Now some people are talking about porting DPDK on other architectures. For example, XLP, you can see this paper, there are some work in progress. But we have to care about really properly prepared DPDK to this porting. Yeah, maybe some people have heard about Open Data Plane, Linaro initiative. And there are also some initiatives from Linux Foundation. Probably more to come in next month. Yeah, another really important thing when writing your application is how I have support during the development and after in production. So first, we can say that the documentation of DPDK has a really good quality. And you can ask some questions on the mailing list. But okay, the mailing list is really great because there are many people answering to many questions. But you have to understand that it's a best effort from the open source community. Sometimes for a product, you could need some commercial support. So you can check on this page, the About page. You can find some company providing some support. And by the way, I take the occasion to say that if you know other companies which are really qualified for DPDK support, you can notify it. Yeah, about support, really often the question is how do you support this version or this function? Okay, for the moment, the policy is performance first because speed matters and compatibility is another priority. Then, when your application is well written, you have to package it and to deploy it. First, you have to package so with the DPDK library. 2 years ago, you were finding DPDK on the Intel website. But it was only the release from Intel with no participation of the community. So now you find DPDK on dpdk.org, which is the result of the community effort. And this year there was a new package in Fedora for DPDK, so you can deploy your application in Fedora without disturbing your user. And I hope there will be more package in the future in other distributions, probably because DPDK is becoming very popular. But when packaging your application, maybe the first option is to embed DPDK in your application because, as you know, the first DPDK mod was a static library. Now you can use a shared library, and it's what it should be chosen by the Linux distribution. Okay. So about dpdk.org, before writing your application, I think you should check now on this repository. It's the root dpdk repository, because there is a new section called apps. You can see the first app is pktgen dpdk from WinRiver. So more to come next, and maybe the application you want is here. If it's not here, you could be inspired by this application. It's the beauty of the open source process. Or you can be inspired by the DPDK examples also. And then you are encouraged to publish your application on this repository. Yeah. Here, I want to explain how we could attract more users, because having more users will make a bigger community with more support, with more application, with actually it boosts everyone. So it's really interesting. But to have more users, you have to make clean API, because it's the first thing a user you will see. And something really difficult is to have coherent libraries, because clean is a good thing, but someone make a clean API for our library, and the next library or the next driver is totally different, and it disturbs the users. Yeah, so it's really a concern. We have to do some generic API. Yeah, actually, there are many discussions at the moment about that. For example, we want to support all the new CPU without requesting from the user to know, oh, I'm running with a CPU with SE 4.2, or I'm running with 4 gigs network card. All these things should be abstracted from the user point of view. And okay, it's quite evident. It should be easy to use, easy to understand, and well documented. But about the documentation, I think it's okay currently. By the way, all the new code should be documented. And yeah, to attract users, speed matters. Because I think everyone is looking at DPDK because speed matters. And last thing, sometimes users are really disturbed by the configuration, because yes, we can say today configure DPDK application is quite complex. Okay, some tracks to improve. First, the compilation options. There are many compilation options. I think we can remove many options and use some defaults at runtime. There is also something really difficult about the mapping between CPU and PCI, because you have to, when you have a multi-socket CPU, you have to take care that a core is using the PCI device from the right socket, from the socket which is running on. But it's not automatic today. Another thing, why DPDK can be interesting, it's because we could use any NIC. It's not really the case today, but we have to attract all the NIC vendors. The NIC vendors should know that they can contribute on dpdk.org, but if for any reason they don't want, it is possible to publish their driver as a binary extension.
So Thomas, I guess, is that a reasonable option, and is there any reason why they wouldn't, I guess, engage on that and do it?
Who? Sorry? Who do it?
So
yeah.
The binary extension, I guess, the conversations that we had earlier over lunch about, I guess, some NIC vendors not wanting to put their drivers out there in open source. The binary extension should solve that and give them their IP protection, right?
The question is it serving the API?
I guess the question is, so I had a conversation at lunch that perhaps one of the reasons we're not seeing, additional NIC pull mode drivers out there is that these other vendors may not want to give up their IP and put it in the open source community, just policy of their company or what have you. And my question is, because I've been asked the same thing from other customers, hey, where can I get a Mellanox PMD and why isn't it in dpdk.org? Right? I get asked that probably once a week anyways from somebody. So my question, I guess, is the binary extension for the library an avenue to, I guess, provide the balance between the two? And do you think this is something we'll see some progress on from Mellanox and Emulexes of the world?
Yeah. It's really a choice from the NIC vendor. The only thing it solved, it's actually I really don't know why they do it, but just it's their choice. If they don't want to show the code, we cannot force them. And for me, I prefer to have a binary driver than nothing. But actually, if I had the choice, I would be all the driver for all the NIC vendors would be published on dpdk.org and as open source code. Here, I would say that, in my opinion, it's the interest of the NIC vendor to publish their code, because I think it's more used when it's published. But the only thing we can do is to request it from them. Yeah, another thing which is difficult for the NIC vendors is about the API. First, we have to be sure that the features of the DPDK can fit with the NIC features, or in the other sense, how to provide all the features of a NIC in a generic API. It's something really difficult, and I think it's a work to come. Yeah, a track for that is to have a scheme based on query. And yeah, another thing, the mbuf API must be efficient for any NIC. Many we can have some NIC which could require another mbuf for high performance. I think it's not the case today, but it's a question. Okay. Then something really important is to have more developers, because more developers means more features, more support, more anything. So having a nice code allows to have more developers, more bug report. It's something which is not really done today, but if you see a bug but you don't have time to fix it, just take time to write your bug report on the list, and maybe someone else could fix it. We are growing, and having a way to dispatch the work could help to make the community growing. Yeah, this one is also really, really important. Actually, I think it's the most important today. We lack of reviewers, so if you can review a patch, please don't hesitate. And this way, when a developer has the patch reviewed, he enjoyed contributing to DPDK, and we can expect to have more patch from him. Another thing important, we have to be really open in all the decisions and debate publicly. Yeah, about the growing community, as you can say, so the dpdk.org community is born in 2013 March, and now we have approximately 600 registered readers on the mailing list. Some people are unregistered also. Okay. About the contribution, in the last release 1.7, 0, and 1, there was 46 authors. And these authors, since the 1.6 release, are Intel, Sixwin, Brocade, Red Hat, and many other ones. The challenge for the next month is to have more people from more company or more hobbyists. Yeah, about discussion, it's another way to see how it's increasing. Currently, we have 80 participants to the discussion during the month. And you can see the number of threads is really increasing. So it's really important. Now we have many discussions, so we have to be more strict on the rule in discussion in order to have efficient discussions. First thing is about the title of your email, because bad title won't be read probably, because there is a lot of mail. And yeah, there are other rules and policies. You can read it on the website. Yeah, in order to manage a large community, sometimes we require some police. But don't forget that we can be flexible in order to have good innovation. I would like to illustrate how a patch lives on the mailing list. First, I would like to have some bug report. I have an example. Yeah, here someone from Intel, which manages validation actually. I've seen an errors, a compilation error. So someone can write a patch, and don't forget to put good comments in your code. Then you commit it with Git, and here don't forget to put some good log. This one is really important after to understand how DPDK evolves. The basic question when writing the logs is why I have to write this patch, when the bug appears, and how I've done it. Then you have to add a line to certify that you have right to send the patch. This one is legal, so it's mandatory. After, you can send your patch with a Git. Here there are some help to do this. And then the patch can be tested. The tester is granted with a tested by line. Okay, here is an example. Someone from Intel has tested the patch. Okay, so there is a line. It's the same example than before. Then, when the patch is sent, it has to be reviewed. This step is really important and mandatory. So, when you agreed with the patch, you put a line like this, act by. And then, finally, the patch can be integrated. So a mail is sent to notify everyone that the patch is integrated. You don't have to test it anymore to improve it. And here you can see the commit, the final commit with all the lines, the testers, the reviewer, okay, and the patch. With you can see a short title and a reference to the origin of the bug. It's like a good example. As you can see, reviewers are really important. So please participate in that. It's a good thing to say that the mailing list is not write only. Often you write some emails to request some help, but you can also read what others do. And by the way, by reading the mailing list, you can better understand how DPDK is evolving. Yeah, something new. Now that DPDK is growing, we need to split the maintenance. So there will be some new repository, which will be called DPDK something next. In this repository, the maintainer of a part can push some commit and prepare for next release. Then, when all is clean and properly reviewed, I insist, it's very important, and that documentation is up to date, then it can be pulled in the main repository. Yeah, so this scheme is going to be applied for documentation and for Fordville driver and probably for more parts to come. Then another thing, we have to make some release every 4 months in order to sustain innovation. So the rule will be to have the release ready at least 2 months before. And then testers and validators can work during these 2 months, and it's time to do the required fixes and reworks. So there will be a merge window with likely the same model as kernel.org, but okay, DPDK is a young project, so you probably need a large merge window. And there will be some major release, .0, and after we can have some minor release like .1 in order to have the fixes which was not seen when releasing the major one. This scheme is to avoid to wait 4 months to have the fixes. Okay. Other news about the tools. Sometimes some people request to have a patchwork tool to check which patch are pending. Okay, the good news is that patchwork is currently running on dpdk.org. You can check it on the page /dev/patchwork. But it's only the beginning of the usage of this tool. We are still looking how to use it efficiently. Then we will need a customized tool to check the coding rules in order to keep clean code. You also need a tool to test all the build configuration, all the build environments or compiler. Okay, it doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. Okay, thank you. Some static analyzers are coming. Maybe you've noticed that the winner of the DPDK contest was TrustinSoft, which is making an analyzer, but there are some other analyzers. There are really good tools to find some hot bugs. Yeah, Doxygen is currently used to make the API documentation. Please check it because there are currently some errors, and yeah, documentation has to be checked to be clean. There are some unit tests in the directory app/test. And now a new test suite is coming in the repository dcts.git. This repository is managed by an Intel team. And I hope all these tools will be automated in order to have quick validation of the incoming patch or before release. And it can help also to have some performance benchmarking when discussing which is the best design between two solutions. Okay, the final word is everybody is welcome on dpdk.org. This website is open 24/7. But you also can join every second Thursday of every month a meetup in Santa Clara for the first one. You could discuss packet processing or drive fast RC cars. Yeah, really. And if you have a car, you can bring your own. There are some flyers just at the exit. for this meetup. That's it. Thank you.